Did the advent of games increase human adaptivity by providing practice for the part of the brain that contends with hypothetical situations? Do populations with different games seem to be differently adaptive to novelty? This is a great question. Long ago, I was working on a project about creativity and specifically about game and sport.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it doesn't leave a lot of record. Most games that are played among at least pre-agricultural people are played with biodegradable stuff, and so don't leave a record, and it's hard to know. But we have, for instance, talked about, what is the game called in
Ulama.
among the Maya, who were before that. Maybe even the Olmec had some version of it, right?
Yep.
So you want to say something about that?
Yeah, the Mesoamerican ball game, Ulama, is a very difficult game. It still exists.
Mm-hmm.
You will see on temples very frequently a ring, small ring sticking sideways off of a building on two sides. The court often has slanted sides, and the idea was to get the ball through. It's like basketball, but
But they're throwing, right? Not
no, I think.
Really?
Well, the modern game of Ulama involves like hitting it with your hip. It's a really difficult.
Oh, that's
game.
right. It's more like soccer. Yeah.
But anyway, let's just say, in general, these games have to pay back, and there's a lot of cost involved. In the case of Ulama, the cost, as we understand it, involves either the winners or the losers, depends which culture and at which moment in history were put to death, which is, it's not.
It's a lesson in perverse incentives at some level for some of them.
It's a pretty interesting game. There's also some interesting stuff that unfolds in, I believe it's Borneo. There's some conflicts, where there's like an infinite regress of revenge.
Oh.
And so the idea is that you have to avenge the deaths of people who were killed by the enemy tribe.
That's definitely the case in Papua New Guinea.
Maybe this is Papua New Guinea I'm thinking of.
Or not. Papua New Guinea is huge, but in some of the tribes in Papua New Guinea. Yep.
It's a highly diverse island. But in any case, the point is you only count the last death. And so the point is you're never even because you're only counting the last deaths.
Great.
But
another place where we need a little bit of math.
Well, no, I'm not so sure of that.
Okay.
I'm wondering if actually that it's terribly wasteful, but that this is a mechanism for making sure that, let's say that you just disengage and you stop making war on your enemy, right? Your enemy could get really strong while you're not paying attention. And the next time you make war, they could obliterate you.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you negotiated that you were always you were always avenging the last death, so you were always dead even.
You're always either on active offense or active defense.
Right.
At a village level or a population level.
Right, which would keep two populations from ever getting out of sync with each other. I mean, this is a more general problem. Anyway, I don't know if that's at all what's going on, or even if I necessarily have the setup correct. But the point is, games are complex. They are expensive when you consider the massive investment of time and energy that is put into them. They persist over evolutionary time. They morph. They're clearly adaptive, so they have to be paid for by some benefit that's even greater. And surely, in many cases, it has to do with keeping your skills sharp for warfare, getting a team of people to be able to understand what each other are going to do on a battlefield. So no doubt, all of those games, any persistent game is going to have an adaptive explanation. And the question is, are they all the same? Probably not.
Yeah.
Many of them are probably about war.
Yeah.
But
no, and the distinction, the militant moderate here who asked the question specifies game, not sport. And sport obviously has element of game, and game is as I have defined it, basically sport absent the physical. So it is precisely potentially about, as the question asks, providing practice for the part of the brain that contends with hypothetical situations, right? And sport can deal with hypotheticals as well, but they have to be perfectly staged and choreographed. Whereas the kinds of games that don't involve actual physical negotiation are abstract, all up in the head.